Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome. Hopefully, you are staying warm, whatever you are. Here in Austin, Texas, where I'm at, it's a little icy. I'm looking at my window, and there's ice outside my window, snow, which is something that we don't see a lot. My name is Ariel Gamino. I'm the president of the Harvard Extension Alumni Association, and I'm truly, truly excited to be here with all of you tonight. Tonight's panel is one of my favorite events because it brings together two passionate communities, the Harvard Extension Alumni Association and the Harvard Student Association. Alumni joining forces with the future leaders of the HEA. And events like this are how we strengthen our network. We connect, we learn from each other, and we make it easier for the next alum to see what's possible. And this evening is about careers and growth, a program of real journeys, practical insights, and the kind of encouragement that helps people take it to the next step. We're here to explore how an HES degree can reshape a professional path, how it can open doors, spark confidence, and create momentum when you're changing directions or leveling up. So tonight, you'll hear from four amazing alumni who have navigated career transitions and turned their extension experience into new opportunities. And I'm so happy because not only are they alumni, but also they're leaders of the HEA and power of the board. Thank you to the panelists for being here and for sharing your time and journey. To everyone who's joining us, I hope you'll listen to the lessons you can apply. I also hope you'll see yourself in these journeys. We'll have time for Q&A, so please drop the questions. Do keep your mic muted. This meeting is being recorded and it'll be sent to those who register. So you have a chance to see it later on. And with that, let's get started. I want to introduce our moderator, my friend, and pass the mic to someone who has been working so hard for months. This is something that started about 4 months ago to make this event possible. Regina Gallardo is a current student in the Museum Studies program and soon to be an alum this fall. Regina, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ariel. And again, thank you so much to everybody that joined us today. I have the pleasure of introducing our wonderful panelists. So I will be reading their bios and give you a little bit of a sense of who these amazing leaders are. So I will start with Javier Jimenez. He is a strategic executive and U.S. Air Force veteran with over 20 years of leadership experience, spanning the private, multinational government, and nonprofit sectors. Having served in the Pacific, Europe, and Middle East, his career reflects a lifelong commitment to service, innovation, and community impact. As Director of Product Development at USAA, Javier helped establish and lead product development unit responsible for launching new offerings that expanded the company's market reach while advancing AI-driven strategies to enhance performance, risk management, and operational efficiency. Beyond the corporate sphere, he serves as Vice President of Government Affairs and a board member for the United Soldiers and Sailors of America, advocating in Washington, D.C. for policy supporting military families and addressing food insecurity. An engaged Harvard alumnus, ALM 23, Javier co-founded the Global Development Practice Student Society and serves on the Harvard Extension Alumni Association Board of Directors. In 2025, he was honored with the Colonel Theodore Roosevelt Leadership Award by the Harvard Veterans Alumni Association for his exemplary leadership and advocacy within the veteran community. Our next panelist is Dr. Robert Dieter. He is a professor of medicine at Loyola University in Chicago, specializing in interventional cardiology and vascular medicine. At the age of 50, he completed his master's in management, earning his ALM in 2020 from Harvard University. The courses leading to this degree develop a better understanding of the influences of human nature. The application of what he learned at Harvard includes a better understanding of dynamics in medicine, the use of behavioral economics in healthcare, as well as non-medical applications. Non-medical uses of his degree have included developing volunteer activities for grade school and high school students, working for a nonprofit organization, being the director of library at the International Museum of Surgical Sciences, and establishing the Naturalist and Explorers Club at the Harvard Club of New York City. Dr. Dieter is the father of 4 children and has been married for 28 years. Our next panelist is Carlos Vargas. Dr. Carlos Vargas is the Chief Sustainability Officer, board member, and global leader at the intersection of sustainable finance, climate governance, and infrastructure. He serves as a CSO and board member at Grupo HICSA, is an elected board member of the Harvard Extension Alumni Association, an instructor at Harvard University, TCE, and a professor at Tecnológico de Monterrey, EGADE Business School. A strong community member of the Impact on Sustainable Finance Faculty Consortium and author of Fundamentals of Sustainable Finance. He focuses on turning ESG frameworks into measurable and investable impact. And our last but not least, Allison C. Ulrich is our final panelist. Allison Ulrich is a graduate of ALM of class of 2022. She's an experienced transformative executive who mentors individuals and guides international supply chain and operations teams to scale, collaborate, and efficiently communicate while empowering and embracing cultural differences to unlock a professional milestones in professional development. If you can give them a wonderful clap quietly or react to welcome our amazing panelists today. So today, we will start with the question of what was your favorite part of your HES experience that helped your professional journey? I will also type this question into the chat so you can see what we're talking about. So why don't Carlos start us off?
Oh, sorry. Well, thank you so much for the kind invitation. I think I forgot to send when I graduated. That was 2013 from an ALM in sustainability. Well, for me, this has been a great experience. The HES experience has helped me significantly in my professional journey. I've always been a professional in finance, and I studied finance in college. But then I learned about sustainability at Harvard, and that opened up a great new world for me. And all my career since has been on that. I ended up teaching, which is something that I love. I think that my favorite part of what this professional journey resulted in has been the teaching, because that's really something that makes my purpose and my why interesting for what I do at the end of the day. But also, I think it's been about other interesting experiences, the kind of people that I got to meet working with some of these very professional individuals that we have here today, with Alison, Ariel, Javier at the alumni board, for example, but also other colleagues that I've found in work through time, which is also great. And all of this perhaps is to say that HES helped me bridge worlds. It helped me connect, in my case, two professional areas, sustainability and finance, but also academia and industry. And also it has helped me learn more and also keep learning as time has come. And now learning about other things like artificial intelligence and other things that are changing my field and are helping me, enrich what I can offer. But also all of this has also come from HES. I think part of the intention of the question when I was thinking about it was also about my favorite part per se. And I would say Harvard Summer School. That was a very interesting summer, 2 summers, I think I did summer school at the time. And also because all of the activities and everything that was part of the experience was not only taking the classes, but also meeting people from everywhere in the world. I loved it so much that I ended up teaching summer school for the last 13 years, I think, or 12, something around there, at Harvard, which is great. So yeah, but what can I say? I'm actually a cheerleader for our institution.
I just had my first January term on campus, and it was just the most amazing experience I had. The community that we built within my class, it was really wonderful, and it was all possible through HES. I wonder what
Yeah,
the
no,
other.
if I may say, usually there's 20 plus different nationalities in a cohort, in a class, which is just amazing. It's very special.
What about our other panelists?
I can go. First off, Regina, thank you for hosting this. Ariel, I'm glad we could do this for everybody. I'm currently the vice president of the HEAA. It is my second term. The first time around, I was a director at large. So I think part of why we're all here is the opportunity to really expand our mindsets and be challenged and supported by people when we choose to continue our education, no matter where we consider going. It's that opportunity to meet wonderful people. And for me, being on the board is a continuation of my experience at Harvard that I'm really thankful for. So really happy to be here and to meet all of you and see all of you here tonight. So for me, I would say my favorite part was holistically all of the people that I had classes with. We all have an opportunity, whether, it's your ALM or a certificate, to look at what going back to school means, going back for further education. It is a huge time commitment on top of what each of us are doing prior to saying yes to entering Harvard, right? And I think the biggest component is you're also then surrounding yourself with people who are also making that decision. So it is a commitment, which means you are going to be surrounded by people who are interested and eager to learn. And what's a component of that is how excited they are to push themselves to make the best, opportunity of that investment financially and also their time. And I went back to school later on in my career. I started the program. I was fortunate to be living in Cambridge when I started. And I was 42, 43 when I started. And going back later on, deeper into my career, it was a really phenomenal opportunity because it's this really true combination of practical and the application component. Instead of just highlighting a textbook, it's that combination of reading, absorbing, really seriously participating to make the most of your time. And I think that's, for me, what stood out, mostly because I went back when I was older, but really when you see there are so many other people that are in your classes, whether you were in person or virtual, you keep having this continual intersection with 2, 3, 5, 8, 10, 20, 30 people. And I think the biggest part is that component of the people that you meet, because they were pushing me, whether I knew of them or not. And then it forces you to get out of your comfort zone, to level up again, because you're with A plus people. And I think that's my biggest takeaway, because they helped push me. You're in a very, when I went back, it was a very foreign, new concept, because I was very comfortable with the growth that I had in my career in operations, manufacturing, logistics, supply chain. And I thought, to some extent, going back would be easy, but it was the hardest thing. That first semester was like really knocking off the rust. And it was the people when you raise your hand in class or, raise your hand on Zoom to participate, the back channel comms that you get privately on Zoom or after class from people to say, I'm so glad you said X, Y, or Z. It makes you personally feel like I'm doing the right thing and asking that question wasn't such a bad idea. But then you also then pay it forward to people too. So everybody else around you feels the same way that I know people, what they provided me. Those people ended up being the ones that when we started later on in our degrees, you'd intersect with them more. And no matter whether we were on a project together or not, you constantly communicate. And then you also want to bring everybody else in that's in your classes so that they can make the most of, homework of a project. So it's really the people. That was my greatest takeaway and like the greatest part of my experience and journey, because the culmination of that was the opportunity to do the capstone project. So that is a selection in which you do a few extra classes. And we were able to do that. Again, like I mentioned, I lived in Cambridge, and we were able to come together right at the end of the pandemic. And most of those in my cohort for capstone, they didn't live nearby. So they were just tickled to, one, be able to come back in person, two, be at Harvard, three, be at Cambridge, and then four, were all together. And the way in which your personalities intersect in person was, identical and in parallel with who you are and who they are, on the screen. And they just made it really memorable. So much fun, a really challenging, pushing journey. And just really thankful for all of our professors and TAs along the way too. So it's the people. So thanks.
I really love how both you and Carl's answer centered in community, and your answer thinking about intentionality as well, going back to school, highlighting, etc. There's still this like beautiful intentionality that you're creating, but also you're sharing with the rest of your classmates.
Okay. I'll be happy to go next if it's okay. You all hear me okay? Perfect. So, Javier Jimenez, I'm a director at large with the Extension School Alumni Association, and I couldn't be more prouder. And I was going to speak to people, but I think Allison and Carlos did such a great job that it's just going to sound repetitive. But I'm going to speak to something that I think is really critical. My degree is in global development practice, and I focus primarily on the community development, social justice track. And I would say that my favorite part of attending the school was the immediacy of the impact that the classroom took from classroom to application, real life, right? We didn't just work on theories. We didn't just focus on hypotheticals, solving solutions to solving world problems. We actually started working on things that made sense, that were on the ground. I remember some of my courses. I remember one class was about food deserts. We were in Chicago and the south side of Chicago talking to educators, talking to city leaders, talking to the mayor at the time um, about what happens in some communities that don't have access to food, right? So that's so real rather than just reading it from a book. To me, that just really shaped uh, my approach to how I approach my capstone and the work that I did at the end. Um, and it really gives you a different perspective. It's not just an abstract perspective, but it gives you a lens to test decisions, challenge assumptions, and really find ways to improve outcomes. To me, that was the real part that I think made a lot of sense for me, that I really enjoyed. And because of that, I was able to actually put it into practice, and it's still working on that today. So I would say out of the people and the networks, and one of the other things that I also found very valuable, that my favorite thing was really making a connection with a professor. So I'll give you some advice. So if you can find a professor or a lecturer that you can connect with and stay connected after you leave, that's real success, because then you have insight into and access to a network of that most people wish they had. So, that was my favorite part of the experience.
Yeah, I can share the student perspective that I feel very similar to you as a student in finding these real life applications to my current work, and they're always talking to one another. It's really wonderful things that I can share something that I learned at work in class, but also something I learned in class at work. And it's really a beautiful thing to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Regina. And I think everybody's made my my presentation a little bit easier on this. I will echo what has been said, but I kind of thought about this in three different tiers. And I don't know if I can put a hierarchy to any of these, but I'll go in order as I think about this. The knowledge that I obtained in the extension school in earning my master's at a later age in my life, I think it was an extremely rigorous program. I learned a lot. Some classes were, almost standalone, some built upon others. And I think regardless, they're all applicable in life and some to your career, but I think all in life. It's been highlighted a little bit, but the environment in which we learned or are learning at the extension school is unique. You can be on campus, and when I was going through the program, there were more weekends were required on campus. So and I loved it. I would encourage anybody who has the ability to be on campus at Harvard, go there. It is a wonderful environment. The resources, the physical resources are second to none. But then coupled with that is the distance learning. There's such a powerful ability through the extension school for distance learning. And this allows us to develop a peer network that is international. Some of my friends are on this call that were classmates. Hello to all of you. And you develop a rapport with your classmates, has already been discussed, and you should be active about this. And it is one of the takeaways from the extension school that I really find important. And then finally, it's been said already, but the professors are there. They want to teach. They're excellent. They're experts in their field, and they want to help you. So find a few of them that you connect with. And I have I graduated a couple of years ago now, but I still remain in touch with a few of my professors. They got an email from one of them this morning, and it's a lifelong friendship and professional development that is afforded to us at the Extension School. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dieter. And you bring us up to a really nice ground for my next question, which is thinking about skills. You shared about, skills that you apply to your career, but also your life. And my next question is, what skills did you learn at HES that have benefited you in your career?
Thank you. Thinking about this, I try to look at this as, some classes you learn skills that may not carry over to other classes. So, and I'll highlight a few of the classes I took. One was the quantitative methods for the social sciences and the humanities, heavily statistic-based, excellent professors and TAs. And this allows me to have a lens both in my practice, but also in life to analyze in a statistically rigorous method. So it's a better way to critically look at data. And I use this day-to-day practice, but also when we listen to the news, when we look at different things, it's an excellent class for that. Some classes which built on each other. So I took several management classes, strategic management, strategic business insight, and some others. And these, I'm a physician, so this helped expand my knowledge base for, business initiatives, how to understand the economic or financial side of medicine that I really was not exposed to before. And I can use these in my practice. One of the classes that I was fortunate enough to have a weekend component to, but it really surprised me about what I learned from it, it was the sustainability leadership for the 21st century. I expected it to be more of an environmental class, but what it evolved into was how to develop a project, how to react to different challenges, how to pivot, and how to be successful in that environment. So it wasn't necessarily about climate, which I expected. It was actually far more about a very practical work environment. Outstanding course. So if people have not taken this and still need a course, sustainability leadership for the 21st century, I really enjoyed and learned a lot and very practical. And then the last course I took, and it was not by intention, but I'm glad it was the last course, was behavioral economics. And this pulled together almost all the other classes. It allowed for a framework on economics, on finance, and then it looked at why some behavior, which is seemingly irrational, actually could be explained by some different theories, biases, heuristics. Phenomenal class. And behavioral economics, I'd say, is taught by one of my favorite professors at Harvard. And again, I was lucky to have it as my final class. And then, overall, putting it all together, what have I've learned about drivers, motivators for people. I can apply this daily in my practice. I've learned about economics. I've learned about finance. And I could go on and on about this. There's so much exciting to say, but I think I'll hand it off to some of the other panelists so that they can get their words in. Thank you.
I can go. Oh my God. I mean, there are just so many valuable skills that I think I learned at the university. That course that Robert just mentioned was also one of my favorites. And I was able to take it on campus, and I took as many courses on campus that I could because it doesn't replace, being on Zoom, even though you may be on a live class. But in my role, what I do at USAA and for the other organization in DC, I'm primarily in a leadership role. And I'll tell you that I think the biggest skill that I learned that I think a lot of us overlook is a more deliberate approach to leadership. And what I mean by that is really a way to balance collaboration, accountability, moral responsibility, in times when things are just not as clear and there's a lot of ambiguity, right? A lot of things are being questioned, data is being questioned, behaviors are being questioned. And for me, it was really more about finding a way to, and I'll say this because this degree in global development, a lot of this work was new to me. I came from the business world. I have an MBA. I studied marketing and economics. So to me, moving into global development, learning about sustainability, learning about systems was new, even though I understood it to a certain extent from a, high level. Learning the in-depth inner workings of that type of environment challenged me in a lot of ways, that to the point where there were times when I even considered just, calling it quits just because of the rigor. But I can tell you that I think it really taught me how to slow the moment of action. As opposed to being reactive in business, you react. You're always chasing something. Either there's a problem, you're not meeting quotas, you're not meeting sales, whatever that is. You're forced to act, and sometimes you don't test assumptions. And this, I learned the skill of test assumptions. Challenge power. There's nothing wrong with challenging power. Just because you're in the room with people that have higher titles doesn't mean that they're any smarter than you. It just means that they have a higher title. So you're all as equally intelligent and vetted as everybody else, right? So for me, weighing in all of those factors and putting them together and understanding how systems are interlinked more so than we realize was probably my biggest skill that I learned from a grander level. Now, well, there were a lot of things that I learned also within each of the courses that I took. But I think to me, that's probably the biggest thing that I took away is really shifting and shaping the way I think. Because I really feel like it has. It really changed me in a lot of ways. It transformed the way I operate. It transformed the way I think, and this is why I'm here. I want to be able to also parlay that knowledge and understanding and help people, and also help build the next set of leaders. So
It seems like both of you had this intersectional or multidisciplinary approach to leadership that you learned at the extension school, and also those moments of challenges that
oh,
helped you
absolutely.
grow.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'll give you
Especially,
another note though. So when I started, I never intended to get a graduate degree. Um, I started with just a certificate, and then because I had an MBA, my natural path was management or finance, although until HES told me that I couldn't get any of those degrees because I had an MBA. So I had to either quit or I had to start all over again. So I ended up starting all over again. So only one of the courses that I had taken qualified as to be for the GDP program. So actually, after 5 courses, I had to take 11 more. And it was complex, it was challenging, but you know what? I'm glad that I did it.
I can go next. Well, I think for me it was about changing mindsets more than skills, but the skills are also part of that. Trying to think about it, I think the first that comes to mind is how to ask better questions, how to keep the right assumptions in the kind of work that we were doing and learning. And it was a very interesting part to me because I think trying to understand how things work and making it more practical, I guess. I don't know if I'm being clear on that. In particular, was something I got from the courses I was taking. One thing that I remember clearly is that all of these courses, or at least most of them, were very practical. But the time I was working on my capstone, it was very clear that I had already worked on real life projects, in case studies, in very valuable learning activities that were extremely helpful for the part forward. I think that also somehow is kind of a skill, the execution mindset, the fact that things were always very, very practical. And it's, to me, it's been very helpful into making that connection, how theory, it's necessary to understand the ways of the world, but putting it in practice is the real challenge. And it's where what actually goes to the next level. I think the other skill-ish kind of thing that I learned was a different language. I was entering into sustainability, and I could learn the language of sustainability at the program. The kind of people I was learning from and working with in my courses. Some of them were very experienced professionals. Some of them, the professors, some of them invented the things that I was learning about. So that was great to hear from them firsthand how to work in this new field, because for me it was a complete career change, I would say. And that language was very very important part of the experience. The other thing I would say is time management. Time management was always an important part. The flexibility of the extension school is great because a lot of my classes were online. I took classes in Mexico, I took classes in Europe, I took classes in different places when I was moving around for work or for other reasons, and it worked. I know a lot of my classmates were also having different life situations that would make them take this flexibility as a valuable part of their experience, but that required time management. I think it was part of the whole deal. And the final thing I would say is resilience. One thing that I was thinking about when I was exploring these questions was I ran my first marathon while I was doing my ALM, and I think it was also part of how motivated I was at the time, and that it's been several more after. I'm very proud of that part, because it's also part of the overall experience. It's part of what you get once you feel you really are part of something bigger, and that's what it brought to me.
Great. I'll round out the panelists with this question. I think for me, it is more so about being reminded about skills that I know that I had or have, and bringing them really to the forefront, putting the spotlight on them, enhancing them. What I mean by that is, again, going back for higher education later on in life, in my career, I was at a point where I was in advanced leadership positions. And what going back to school represented for me was, again, as I mentioned, it's taking the classes, the professors, their wisdom and experiences, and what the TAs are able to provide you, and those that are in the class, and what you're highlighting in a textbook. For me, it was about taking this step back to really glean out what I had possibly been not utilizing well, or what I had been missing. Because I feel as we get later on in our career, clearly, collectively as a society, it's about like what success is and what happiness is. And as you get older, I think we all, as we should, I think, have a better opportunity to really tease out what success and happiness means to each of us at a broader level. When you're young and living and dying by LinkedIn, you can get caught up in it pretty easily. For me, the skills that it allowed me to fine tune or focus more on in order to give back, in leadership capacity, and also for myself and everybody else as I pay it forward, it's practicality, and a component of that is efficiency. It's also, like, I just wrote these down too. It's for me, it's communication and it's empathy. And with that execution piece too, I think, it's the capacity to realize that what you are looking to solve doesn't necessarily need you to remind people constantly where you went to school and like what class you took. It's more about in what you say less and how you apply it in a very like quiet, calm duck on the water. Because when we are given opportunities for leadership and growth, we need to realize and understand that what we're asked to participate in is to be a larger, taller, stronger part of the community in order to help everybody. And usually what that means is when we're going back to school, no matter if it's for a certificate or a degree or any of the programs that you were all involved in, it is about understanding what you're able to pull away from that and utilize that by supporting people and broadcasting it to help people learn and be passionate and excited about it, but also how you're applying that behind the scenes, minute by minute, over the course of the years. Execution for me is about, measuring multiple times, cutting once. We want to be efficient and effective, thinking through what my decisions are about, not only for the greater good of shareholder value or the board, but what's also important to teach people in the moment, if you have that opportunity, while you're making a decision, how you bring people up within your organization to help them learn. Because when you go back to school, no matter where you go, you are provided an opportunity to enhance a gift. And anytime you can pay that gift forward by, sharing with people and showing them what to do instead of doing all the work yourself, it needs to be about like sharing the toys in the sandbox. Practicality and efficiency, aspects of that are about being adaptable, being self-sufficient, increasing your productivity. That practicality is really the piece that I hang my hat on, because again, it's about knowing what you've what you've possibly have interviewed for and where you sit and where you stand. If you've made it, you don't need to really do any more bragging or pounding your hands on the table. You need to show. And again, doing that in a practical manner, effectively, efficiently, is typically done pretty silently. But that is when we take our collective experience in education, when we start rifling through our mental Rolodex of the classes that we've gone through and how we've applied it. I think that speaks a lot of wisdom. That's important. And because of that, there's also the communication piece. I think that's been my biggest takeaway since leaving school, that and empathy. Because you only have somebody's, attention for a very short period of time, and that's getting shorter every day. And so you need to be impactful, and you need to think through your words and how that has a ripple effect, for the positive and the negative. Communication, though, is also the act of listening and talking, and how you bring that together, which is a component of negotiating and having disagreement or argument. We can't live in a world where there is no argument or no negativity. You have to learn to use your skills from school and the professors and classes that you participate in, to make the most of it and really understand like what's going on here. This isn't about I need to be right. You need to put the ego down, and think through how I get to a solution where I'm explaining what I've learned or what I know or what I believe is the right answer, but also yielding the floor to other people that you work with and work for to hear them out. So that way you're approaching it with equity and parity. And then my last one is empathy. I think as I've gotten older, and advanced in my career and the decisions and like the career that I have now, we live in a really stressful world where we are passionate about who we are and what we do, what our title is, and how we give back to the work community that we live in, whether it's private sector, academia, nonprofit, education, so on and so forth. But being a good leader with empathy is important because of, again, the value that attaches to other people, as a symbol, as a good example for how you continually operate as this continual like human resource machine. That is really important again as you move up, because those are the components that have that waterfall effect throughout the community, throughout LinkedIn, throughout your organization. So those are the key skills that I think I had a little bit of before, and I was moving so fast through them, like ticking off the boxes, moving up in my career. But going back to school, on a few podcasts I've spoken on, I've been working in startups for many years. A big topic when I talk is about slowing down in order to speed up, and applying that for myself has been in these skills that I've just mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. And from what you said and what Carlos mentioned, there's this beautiful synergy between technical skills that you have through your classes, like good listening, empathy, right? Making sure that you don't hear, but you listen to your classmates, right? But also the social emotional skills of having empathy and taking other people's into consideration in order to make yourself a good leader. Right. And now here we're surrounded by wonderful alums who are leaders. And this is my final question before we go into audience questions. And apologies to all of you who are here today, but the conversation was so wonderful that I think we might be going a little bit over. And but if we can do like a quick speed round before we go into audience questions, is what advice do you have for current students or alums? And the key in this question here is how can the students or alums translate their HES experience into meaningful experiences in their resumes, on their cover letters, of job interviews, even informational interviews to advance in their career?
I'll go quickly. I'll start it off. I think it's a component of meeting and connecting with as many people as possible. in a truly organic, personal way. Because you've had this opportunity, if you're in school right now, and or if you've just about to finish or you've finished, where, again, like I mentioned in the first question, you're at an institution where you're surrounded by fantastic professors, TAs, and students like yourself, or alumni. And the way in which you can force yourself to really engage and interact is by meeting and talking with as many people as you can, even after you graduate. For me to be in this role now, after being done with school, it forces me into a position to continually adapt and work on communication and hear and listen to understand the perspectives of other people globally. And that is just this continual learning curve. Does it mean that I need to go back and get multiple more certificates and degrees? It could. But I think if you constantly are pushing yourself to meet and have an open mindset, and you share part of your story and you talk about the classes and your experiences and engage in your alumni community and club, no matter where you are globally, and or heck, build them out, help us build them too globally. We need people passionate in this world, no matter where you went to school. And the more we can connect on a positive, open, kind-hearted level, it means so much. And it's the greatest impact, I think. And I think the last part about that too is your power to take your experience from school in class and understand, no matter if it's just a component of going back to school or doing a certificate or doing your undergrad, and also your life experiences and work experiences, it's that power of storytelling. It makes it more convincing. It brings people in, it gets people engaged. And when you also engage that with other people, after you leave school, to listen to their story and ask them questions to like tease out storytelling with those like in the audience, again, it's just this very enriching connection you can make. So that's what I recommend.
And I perhaps will connect to that. I would say field proof, not just interest. A lot of the skills and the projects that you're using in class could be used for your resume and could be somehow used on an interview. It's a matter of understanding how. How do they connect to real life problems and how you can show that you have this, especially after graduating. I think it's very, very useful to use part of that learning experience as what you can offer and showing in a very simple way what problem you helped solve, what was the proposal, how you delivered, what were the results. Things like that are very useful for that particular part of using it for job search. The other thing I would say, and I cannot stress how important it is, networking. Harvard is one of the best networks in the world. It's super powerful. You have no idea how. And once you become an alum, that network is also you. You're part of that. It has to be real. It has to be somehow showing a very deep interest and connection so that people really connect when doing networking. It's something you need to work out and you figure out over time. But it's a very powerful tool, and I think it's something great that we all have here.
Can I add on to that real quick? Just to echo what Carlos said, your investment in furthering your education, it is just that. It is an annuity that lasts the rest of your lifetime. And there are so many opportunities for you to connect and continue meeting people in the Harvard community and how you participate, whether you volunteer or find a local club or start one. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself that keeps giving after you finish school. You put a huge amount of time and money in. Your families were very supportive, and you have to know and understand the resources that are still available for you to utilize after you graduate. you've got every opportunity to take advantage of them. They're wonderful and they help take care of you. That's what we all do. So.
I'll go. I'll just be quick. Don't wait till graduation to start positioning yourself. What I mean by that is when you start your program, or even if you're halfway through your program, think about the outcome you want to achieve, right? The coursework that you choose has to be purposeful, be intentional. Start thinking about the impact you want to make, where you want to be, not just because there's so many cool courses and you want to take all of them, but it's just not feasible. So think about what you want, the outcome you want to achieve. Start shaping your narrative early. What do you want to get to? Where do you want to be? And that's what I did for mine. Early on, luckily, I had great advice from professors, and they said, you know what, start working on what you want to achieve at the end. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to do? So all the courses that I took were specifically designed for me for my capstone. So when I got to my capstone, it was easier. I wasn't having to figure things out at the end. So that's what I would say is like, use it as your personal lab.
That's really wonderful. I have to say this instead. I'm like taking notes. I'm moderating, of course, but I'm taking mental notes of making sure that I apply this as I go because it's really valuable. You know, I shared with the panelists earlier that I'm not in their fields, but even as in my career as a museum professional, these are all valuable skills that I can transcribe into my work in community engagement and education. So I would love to open the floor to audience questions if you'd like to raise your hand. If not, we have some questions on the chat that we can go into.
No takers?
I promise we don't bite. You know, we're online, so no way that we can do that.
You want to read some from the chat, Regina?
So we have a chat question, and there is a question about if you can share an experience that your HES experience has helped with promotion at work or some big career growth through that was directly connected through your HES experience or classes or degree.
I can say, I mean, I directly work in the field that I studied at HES. I have a very, very nice job actually as Chief Sustainability Officer for a development company. It resulted somehow from that part. I need to say I got the job because of networking. That networking originated at one of the Harvard clubs in Mexico. That also helps. Someone was asking that also in the chat, if you can join the Harvard clubs. I've been a member of the Harvard Club of Switzerland, Mexico, Boston, different ones, because that's also part of what you get, and that's also great. I think you do get an advantage with your degree because it's something that really shows to the world that you have the necessary skills and you're prepared for that. But also the networking helps, but also the soft skills that you learn in the programs. It's also great. Different fields, different needs, different opportunities, but I think it does overall help.
Dr. Dieter, I'm like so curious to hear your answer just based on your bio that you actually mentioned your master's degree in management influencing your medical practice.
Sure. So I would first I'd echo all the panelists, what they've said so far. Some great advice. And also I think there's been some good advice in the chat. So people should read through that. For me, the program was not so much revolutionary as it was evolutionary. It added a broader depth to my understanding of medicine, but also life. And I didn't necessarily pursue the degree for a promotion, but for a better way to apply knowledge. And I think that is applicable to all of us. There is certainly some discussion about being very intentional in our education and with the goals. I think that's important. I think that's important in life. But this has allowed me to be a better volunteer. I am working with somebody, actually an international group, trying to develop an AI-driven second opinion program. I am the director of a library, a museum library, and it's amazing how what I learned at Harvard has been able to help me a better director and board member for this organization. So it wasn't necessarily for a promotion in that way, but it gave me a better way to approach people. I think Allison really nailed it and I'll just sum it up in a word, but it's probably not, it can give you diligence, but communication. We learn a lot about communication and respectful communication and dialogue with our peers through this program. And all of this carries not only to our career, to our life, interacting with other people. So again, it wasn't necessarily in my career to get a promotion, but it expanded what I can do within medicine and then outside of medicine, which is fantastic. Thank you.
I have a question. I'm sorry I'm on my phone, but my name is Grace Fong. Is it okay for me to ask a question now?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you so much, Grace.
Yeah. So thanks for the panelists who shared. Appreciate your feedback and input about how the HES has enriched your professional lives. I majored in government, and obviously, initially I wanted to work in the federal government, but as you all know, that the federal government is laying laying people off and laying and so some of those people go in the state government. And I live in California, and one of the people, the HR people there, were saying, well, you have to submit 100 applications in order for you to even get noticed. And so I'm a little bit, and then it's okay, maybe city job, but I'm just wondering, like, it just so happens that the time I graduated, Trump had there was a government shutdown, and there were layoffs in the federal government. And so I having a little bit of struggling a little bit how to navigate, how to apply my degree to jobs in the government, because that's what I majored in. But furthermore, I did my capstone in agriculture, like what a lot of people do in the Central Valley, the H2S, I think that's called, and how farmers, hire immigrants, well, not immigrants, the laborers from Mexico and other places to help harvest some of the crops that we all eat. And so I did a capstone on that. And so I'm a little bit like, there's no really positions in agriculture in the local government or per se. It's really either on the state or federal level, but there's some issues there, as you all can imagine. So if anyone can give me some advice to see how I can navigate this. It's been a bit of a struggle. I graduated on May 2025. So I did do an internship with the Department of Education for the state of Maryland, but that's only a summer internship. And then afterwards, I have to work. So I'm still working as a teacher in the San Francisco Unified School District. But because I got this education at Harvard, I want to use that degree to leverage what I want to ultimately do. So if anybody can give me some input or feedback about that, and maybe helping me to navigate how to find something or land something after graduation.
I can answer the question. And I've given this advice before. So it sounds like you have quite a bit of experience, and you also have an education from Harvard, which means that you've done a lot of great work. I always tell people, because it's job markets are very competitive and challenging, right? That's a fact.
Yeah.
However, we have the opportunity to create a different platform for ourselves. You have LinkedIn, you have social media where you can talk about what you know. You can talk about your ideas, your work. You can share ways to improve society, life, whatever it is that you do. Use the
Mm-hmm.
platforms available to you to talk about the things that you feel passionate about. That's going to
Okay.
give you a platform where people can see who Grace is, what she's about,
Okay.
what she can contribute. You're going
I
to open
see.
doors to people that have never seen or heard from you before. You don't want to go the traditional route because you got to compete against everybody else, and then you're competing against AI and algorithms and companies. Create your own platform. Create your own sounding board where you can talk about whatever you want. That's going to bring attention to you you did not expect.
Okay, great. So using Facebook, using LinkedIn, using some of those, or even the Harvard the Harvard Club in San Francisco, like that, right? Just to
Yeah.
bring out what I studied and what my passion for, and what I would like to see done as just comments or input on different issues. Is that what you're saying?
Create infographics, create stories, create papers, write a white paper about something you care
Okay.
about that you know something about, and share it on LinkedIn. There's so many
Okay.
platforms out there with a lot of people. I'm not talking
Okay.
about commenting, just create your own platform.
Okay. I see. Okay, great. Thank you.
If you want to know more, feel free to reach out.
Okay. And what is your name again, sir?
Javier Jimenez. I'm on LinkedIn,
Okay.
so be more than happy to give you talk more.
Okay, great.
We have a question that was, and I know David has his hand raised, so I'll make sure to give the floor to you, David, in just a moment. But the question was reached out to me by a member anonymously, and it's asking our panelists, which relates to Grace's question, and asking you if you experienced ageism in the workplace, especially after you have graduated from the extension school, with a graduate certificates, a degree, etc., and kind of feeling a little bit stuck, right? As very similar to Grace, and like interview after interview. And what is your advice to kind of move forward from this experience and being able to advance your career, secure a job?
I can take that, but can you repeat the first part of the question?
Have you experienced ageism?
Oh, no, I haven't. And, when I finished school, I was in my mid 40s and I'm in my late 40s. I've been fortunate. I have not experienced that. I know a lot of people out there have. I can't imagine having that happen to somebody. I also can't imagine doing that to somebody. But we live in, a world where situations like this arise. And when I think about that, if that were a situation that happened to me, the first thing I would, reflect on is it's going to happen. It's unfortunate, right? And I think very similar to Grace's question, it's going to happen just as much as you're going to have to apply for 50, 100 jobs sometimes. I've had to do it. Like you have to dig deep. You have to be the higher, stronger individual. And then it's also a really important moment if you experience ageism or any type of situation at an interview or at a job is that the place that you'd want to work, right? Is that the individual that I'd want to collaborate with or report into? And it's in that moment where, no matter again where you went to school, you have to elevate yourself up and realize that who you are is better than that. And I know that doesn't help us get through and find a job, but that should give you the strength and the power to realize, like, I don't have to put up with that. I know it will exist, but I have a really great background and experience, and I've got this resume, and I have a story to tell, and I will make a difference. And that is about how you put out your passion and your purpose. Because unfortunately, there is no way to evade those types of situations. And I think it's, again, where you go back for a higher, greater education and experience. That's what I think to Robert's point, for me, going back to school wasn't about getting like racing after a promotion. I already had a lot of that, but it's about that aspect of realizing there are interesting intersects with people. That while I haven't experienced it, I know it's happened to people that I am very close with, people that I've mentored, people that I consult. And it's about taking that philosophical, that psychological, emotional component to realize and ask yourself that question, is that a place or a person that I want to collaborate with? And I think you know the answer, but it just needs to give you greater power and feed the machine of what ultimately is out there for you that, aligns with your passion and purpose, that, they deserve you. more important than anything.
I would like to follow up on that. I think I have experienced it, and not only ageism, in my case, also discrimination, because really just the name gives you an ethnic origin, and it's as clear as that. Having said that, it's not easy. It's a very complicated world, yes. But I would agree with Alison when I had the unfortunate situation of having proof that I was discriminated, because that's what it is. You just have to also understand that perhaps it's not the right place, or it might not be the right moment. There's different reasons why all of these can also happen at different situations. Good thing is, as long as you're able to show your worth and put it also into those application processes and all this, the right opportunity will come eventually. For different areas, this might be more prevalent than in others. It's different, but at some point, that experience is also valuable. And there's also people that are going to be able to understand that perhaps you might be more mature in your professional experience, but that precisely means that you can offer other things. And the other thing I can also mention, because I think it also happened to me, I'm not really that old. I just look older than I am. I'm also a board member at the moment, not only for the Alumni Association, but also for a company and for an NGO. Board membership is also more interesting as you get older. There's other things you can also do that can also take that and put it in a position that it's an actual advantage. Being a board director has been that, for example. The other thing, and also love that, teaching, sometimes academia also values experience. So it's also an avenue to explore as you feel you're getting older and perhaps looking for other opportunities. Well, those are two ideas you can explore as well.
Thank you so much, Alison and Carlos. And now, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful. The panel discussion was beautiful, and I appreciate everybody who's jumped in and made this happen. I have been out of school for a year, kind of getting my feet under me. In fact, I want to engage kind of on the ageism conversation. I'm going to let it pass, other than to say that the reaction that I've gotten, I'm probably older than I look, but the reaction that I got from just kind of putting a few resumes out told me, it just made me angry and made me realize that, okay, what I don't want a job, I want to create one. I was advised to do that from a professor at Harvard anyway. And so I've successfully navigated that. And having done that, I'm really interested in getting involved with the Alumni Association. What's my best place to start to do that?
Yep, definitely. We are always looking for volunteers. We're always needing people to help out. We have a lot to do. Reach out to me and happy to connect you with opportunities to do that.
Sending you a message on LinkedIn here in just a minute. Thank you.
Yep, perfect.
If nobody else has any questions, I think that's a really wonderful way to end the panel. You know, being inspired so much by the leadership that was present here today. Also, being involved, join the Alumni Association, or if you're a student, please check out HESA's events. We're always here to support you and being able to, you know, bring events like this for you in collaboration with our Alumni Association, but also fun events as well. Thank you again so much to our panelists. And if you all would join me in giving them a round of applause, either digitally or physically, it was just really, really wonderful to share the space with you tonight.
Yep. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Allison, Carlos, Robert, Javier, and of course, Regina. Amazing job. To the students, I can't wait to see you as an alum. You know, to the alum, come join us. We always have looking for people to help out and becoming the next leaders that are going to do events like this. So thank you, everybody, and have a good night. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.